Some people become famous because they choose public life, while others become famous simply because of the family they are born into. Caroline Kenedy belongs to the second group. As the daughter of President John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Kenedy, she has spent almost her entire life under the eyes of the public. Millions of people have watched her grow from a little girl playing in the White House into a lawyer, author, diplomat, and mother. Yet behind the famous name is a woman whose life has been shaped by both privilege and heartbreak. From losing her father at a very young age to saying goodbye to her mother and later her younger brother, Caroline has experienced pain that few people can truly understand. Even during the hardest moments, she has rarely spoken about her private feelings, choosing instead to continue working and serving her country. Many people admire her not because she seeks attention but because she quietly carries on despite difficult circumstances. Her story is not only about being part of America's most famous political family. It is also about learning how to live after loss, protecting family traditions, and finding strength when life changes forever. Through decades of public attention, Caroline Kenedy has shown that dignity, patience, and resilience can leave a lasting impression on people around the world. Caroline Kennedy's childhood was unlike that of any ordinary child. She spent her early years inside the White House, where her father served as the 35th President of the United States. Photographs of her playing under her father's desk became symbols of a young family bringing warmth and happiness to American politics. However, everything changed in November 1963 when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. Caroline was only 5 years old, and her younger brother John was just a small child. Overnight, their lives changed forever. The entire world watched the funeral, seeing two young children walking beside their mother's black dress. Those images became part of history, but behind the cameras were two children trying to understand why their father would never come home again. Jacqueline Kenedy worked hard to give her children a peaceful and private life, moving them away from Washington and protecting them from constant media attention. Caroline grew up surrounded by stories about her father, learning about his leadership and his dreams for the country. At the same time, she carried the responsibility of being a Kenedy, a name connected with hope, politics, and tragedy. From an early age, she learned that public admiration could never remove private pain, and that lesson would stay with her throughout her life. As Caroline grew older, she worked hard to create a life based on her own achievements rather than only her family name. She attended respected schools, studied law, and developed a deep interest in history, education, and public service. Instead of running immediately for political office, she chose a quieter path that allowed her to make a difference through writing, charity work, and cultural projects. She became involved with the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library, helping preserve her father's legacy while encouraging future generations to value courage and public responsibility. Caroline also wrote and edited several books about American history, constitutional rights, and poetry, making complex ideas easier for readers to understand. Later, she represented the United States as ambassador to Japan and then to Australia, strengthening relationships between nations and promoting education and cultural exchange. Throughout these years, she balanced public responsibilities with family life, raising 3 children with her husband while staying away from unnecessary publicity. Unlike many famous figures, she rarely shared personal details or sought media attention. Her calm personality and thoughtful approach earned respect from people across different political views. Caroline proved that leadership does not always require loud speeches or constant headlines. Sometimes it is shown through steady work, quiet determination, and a lifelong commitment to serving others. Although Caroline Kenedy built a successful career and loving family, personal loss remained a recurring part of her journey. She experienced the death of her mother, Jacqueline Kenedy Onassis, whose strength and guidance had shaped her entire life. Only a few years later, tragedy struck again when her younger brother, John F. Kennedy Jr., died in a plane crash along with his wife Carolyn Bissett Kennedy and her sister Lauren. The loss shocked the nation, but for Caroline it meant losing the one person who had shared the unique experience of growing up as the children of a president. Through every difficult chapter, she continued appearing at public events, supporting educational programs, and protecting her family's historical legacy. Friends and observers often describe her as calm, thoughtful, and deeply private. Rather than speaking openly about grief, she has allowed her actions to show her character. She continues to honor the values of service and responsibility that her parents believed in, reminding people that strength is often quiet. Caroline Kennedy's story is ultimately about more than tragedy. It is about perseverance, family loyalty, and the ability to move forward while carrying the memories of those who are gone. Her life shows that even after great sorrow, it is possible to keep working, helping others, and inspiring future generations through grace, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to public service. Some lives seem to be touched by history from the very beginning, and Caroline Kennedy's life is one of them. Born into one of America's most famous families, she entered the world surrounded by hope, admiration, and endless public attention. She was the daughter of President John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Kenedy, and many people believed her childhood would be filled with extraordinary opportunities and happiness. Instead, at only 5 years old, she experienced a tragedy that changed her life forever. The assassination of her father in November 1963 became one of the most heartbreaking moments in American history, and millions of people watched as a little girl walked through grief without fully understanding what had happened. The photographs from those days became symbols of a nation in mourning, but behind every image was a child who had lost her father and a family trying to find a way to move forward. Caroline grew up knowing that the world remembered her father as a president and a hero, while she remembered him simply as the man who used to play with her and make her smile. That early loss shaped the way she looked at life, teaching her that happiness and heartbreak can exist side by side. Over the years, she would become known for her quiet strength, rarely speaking about her private pain and choosing instead to honor her family through service, education, and public responsibility. Even when the cameras followed her every step, Caroline remained calm and reserved, allowing her actions to speak louder than her words. After the death of President Kennedy, Jacqueline Kenedy devoted herself to protecting her children from the constant attention of the media. She moved the family away from Washington and tried to give Caroline and her younger brother, John F. Kennedy Jr., as normal a childhood as possible. It was never easy because the Kennedy name carried enormous public interest, and every family event attracted headlines. Caroline attended excellent schools, loved reading, and developed a deep interest in history and law. While many expected her to enter politics immediately, she preferred a quieter path that focused on education, writing, and preserving her father's legacy. She studied at Radcliffe College and later earned a law degree from Columbia University, proving that she wanted to build her own identity through hard work instead of simply relying on her famous last name. She became involved with the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and helped promote programs that encouraged leadership, public service, and civic responsibility. She also edited and wrote books that introduced new generations to American history and constitutional values. Friends often describe her as thoughtful, intelligent, and private, someone who listened more than she spoke. Those qualities helped her earn respect across political and social circles. While the public often focused on the glamour and history of the Kennedy family, Caroline quietly built a meaningful career dedicated to education, diplomacy, and preserving the ideals her parents believed in. She demonstrated that true leadership does not always require standing in the spotlight. Sometimes it is found in years of steady work and a commitment to helping others without seeking recognition. As Caroline built her own family and career, life seemed to offer moments of peace, but tragedy continued to appear in unexpected ways. In 1994, she lost her mother, Jacqueline Kenedy Onassis, after a battle with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Jackie had been the steady force in Caroline's life, guiding her through childhood, protecting her from public pressure, and teaching her the importance of grace under difficult circumstances. Losing her meant saying goodbye to the person who had carried the family through its darkest days. Only a few years later, another devastating loss shook the family when John F. Kennedy Jr., Caroline's younger brother, died in a plane crash with his wife Carolyn Bissett Kennedy and her sister Lauren. The accident captured national attention because the Kennedy family had once again become part of a heartbreaking story. For Caroline, however, it was much more personal. She had lost the only person who truly understood what it was like to grow up as the child of a president whose life ended in tragedy. The brother who had shared her childhood memories, family traditions, and private experiences was suddenly gone. Despite this unimaginable grief, Caroline continued fulfilling her responsibilities and rarely discussed her emotions in public. She attended events, supported charitable causes, and remained committed to preserving her family's legacy. Many people admired her ability to continue moving forward without seeking sympathy or attention. Her quiet resilience became one of her defining qualities, showing that strength is not always expressed through dramatic speeches but often through the simple decision to keep going each day despite overwhelming loss. Throughout her adult life, Caroline Kenedy continued to dedicate herself to public service while balancing the responsibilities of being a wife, mother, author, and diplomat. She married Edwin Schlossberg and together they raised 3 children while maintaining a relatively private family life despite the constant public interest surrounding the Kennedy name. Her work eventually led her into diplomacy, where she served as the United States ambassador to Japan and later as ambassador to Australia. In both positions, she promoted education, cultural exchange, and international cooperation while representing her country with dignity and professionalism. She also remained deeply involved with the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and the Profile in Courage Award, which honors public officials who make difficult decisions based on principle rather than popularity. Through these efforts, she continued the ideals her father had championed decades earlier. Caroline never appeared interested in celebrity or political drama. Instead, she focused on long-term projects that encouraged leadership, learning, and public responsibility. Her calm presence and measured way of speaking reflected the lessons she had learned from her mother about maintaining dignity during both success and hardship. People who met her often described someone who was approachable, thoughtful, and deeply committed to preserving history while looking toward the future. Her life became an example of how someone born into extraordinary circumstances could choose a path defined not by fame but by service, responsibility, and a quiet determination to contribute something meaningful to society. Looking back over Caroline Kennedy's journey, it becomes clear that her story is not simply about politics or one famous family. It is a story about resilience, loyalty, and the ability to carry grief without allowing it to define every part of life. From losing her father as a little girl to saying goodbye to her mother and brother, she has experienced personal tragedies that would change anyone forever. Yet she has continued to honor their memories not through dramatic public displays but through consistent work, family devotion, and a lifelong commitment to education and public service. Her life reminds people that even those who appear strong and composed have endured private pain that others may never fully understand. Rather than allowing sorrow to stop her, Caroline transformed loss into motivation to protect her family's history and support the values they believed in. She has spent decades showing that courage is often quiet, patience can be powerful, and true character is revealed during life's most difficult moments. While history will always remember her as the daughter of President John F. Kennedy, many people also recognize her as a woman who created her own legacy through intelligence, kindness, and unwavering dedication. Her journey continues to inspire those who believe that strength is measured not by the absence of hardship, but by the determination to keep moving forward, honor loved ones, and continue serving others with grace even after experiencing unimaginable loss. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring celebrity stories, biographies,